All right, take two, and welcome to Critical Weight Theory. So, in this episode, I'm talking about Goodfellas, which is an all time classic. Released in 1990 and directed by Martin Scorsese, Goodfellas is widely considered one of the greatest crime films ever made. In fact, it's one of the greatest films ever made, period. Rotten Tomatoes once called it arguably the high point of Martin Scorsese's career, and more than 30 years later, for many people out there, it's still the movie they point to as an example of a gangster film done right. But what makes Goodfellas endure isn't just the violence or the famous lines or even the performances. It's how the film pulls you inside a world and then slowly shows you the cost of living there. So the story is based on the real life of Henry Hill, a small time criminal who worked with the Italian American mob in New York from the 1950s through the 1970s. The film is adapted from Nicholas Pileggi's nonfiction book Wise Guy, and that real world grounding really makes a difference. This isn't a mythic rise and fall story in the traditional sense. It feels more remembered and personal, sort of like a diary. Ray Liotta plays Henry Hill, our guide through the story, though there are some moments where Henry Hill's wife actually narrates briefly, which is interesting. Robert De Niro is Jimmy Conway, who is calm, controlled, and quietly terrifying. And then there's Joe Pesci as Tommy DeVito, one of the most unforgettable characters in film history. Pesci's Tommy is funny, charming, and horrifying, sometimes all within the same sentence. His sudden mood shifts make every scene feel dangerous. You're never quite sure when a joke will stay a joke or turn into violence, and that's part of the thrill of this film, of course. The tension is captured perfectly in the famous What's Funny About Me scene, where one moment everyone's laughing, the next the room goes silent. It's funny and then it's not. And that sort of uncertainty helps define the entire mood of the movie. What sets Goodfellas apart from earlier gangster films, at least from what I've seen, is how much time it spends on the day to day reality of mob life. It's not just about big heists or power struggles. You see the routines, the friendships, you see petty arguments, easy money, casual brutality, and constant paranoia. And it's all a strange, exotic cocktail. Henry tells us early on, as far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a gangster. And for a while, that movie makes you understand why. There's the suits, the respect, the feeling of being known. Forget about it. Well, actually, I don't know that expression is being used in the movie, but whatever. You know, I think that's from something else, but, I'm taking creative liberty here. Anyway, Scorsese's style plays a huge role in that seduction. The fast paced editing, freeze frames, slow motion, and voiceover narration pull you directly into Henry's head. The soundtrack, packed with period specific rock and soul music, gives the film a kinetic, almost documentary like energy. The most famous example of style and story working together is the Copacabana tracking shot. Henry and Karen enter through the back of the restaurant, moving through the kitchen, down hallways, past staff, and they greet Henry by name, and they seem to give him special respect. It's one unbroken shot, and it makes you feel the power and privilege of that life. Doors open, tables appear to you that not everyone else would be able to get, and certain rules don't apply to you. And the brilliance is that the movie makes you complicit. You feel the appeal before you're allowed to see the rot underneath. Joe Pesci's performance became legendary almost immediately. When he won the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor in 1991, He gave one of the shortest acceptance speeches in Oscar history. He walked on stage, simply said, "It's my privilege, thank you," and he walked off. It was fitting. He let the character speak for himself. And in the movie, much of his dialogue was improvised, which adds to that sense that anything could happen at any moment. Despite all the energy and excitement in the first half, though, Goodfellas never truly glamorizes crime in the long run. As the story moves into the 1970s, everything starts to unravel. Drugs enter the picture, trust erodes, paranoia takes over. One of the scariest scenes is sometimes known as the right around the corner scene. The character Jimmy tells Karen he has stolen Dior dresses for her and directs her to a storefront around the corner from where they are meeting. But there's cause for suspicion. As Karen approaches the shop, she sees shadowy figures moving boxes inside and feels like one of Jimmy's dangerous associates might be there, making her realize something might be wrong. And filled with dread, Karen makes an excuse, gets back into her car, and she speeds away, leaving Jimmy and the seemingly planned hit behind. So, the question on a lot of people's minds is, was it a setup? You do have Jimmy's paranoia that has been established very firmly by this point in the film. Jimmy was systematically killing practically everyone involved in the Lufthansa heist to cover his tracks, and Karen, as Henry's wife, probably knew too much. And apparently, in the real life events, the true story, Jimmy Burke, who the character of Jimmy is based on, apparently did try to have Karen Hill killed, and she supposedly only escaped by sheer luck and street smarts, pretty much like in the film. And there are some symbolic details here, too. There's a street sign in the background that reads, "Don't walk," with an arrow pointing to the alley, which is a subtle hint that it was a one way path to death. But I do appreciate the ambiguity that is still there, nevertheless. The scene's brilliance lies in its uncertainty. It leaves the audience questioning if Jimmy's intentions were truly murderous or if Karen overreacted due to growing paranoia. However, given Jimmy's later actions and the real life context, it's heavily implied that he intended to have her whacked, as Henry narrated about such a thing. He said, "A friend will be the one who has you whacked." And sure enough, that's strongly suggested by this very scene. And it's really one of my favorite scenes in the entire movie. And I love it because it's subtle and there's a will they won't they element, and I'm not talking about dating like like that term is normally used. It's like, will they or won't they have her whacked? And the world that once felt open and exhilarating becomes cramped and exhausting. The editing becomes more frantic. The music feels oppressive. It's no longer sort of gently in the background, it's like in the forefront. It's like it's crowding the characters' minds and clouding their thinking. And Henry's voiceover turns more desperate. By the end, the mob life looks ugly, small, and deeply lonely. And Henry's final fate says it all. After entering the witness protection program, he delivers one of the film's most memorable lines. He has to live like everyone else, no respect, no good food. He says, "I'm an average nobody. I get to live the rest of my life like a schnook." End quote. And that ending reframes everything that came before it. The power was real, but it was temporary, and the price was always waiting. And when Goodfellas was released, it did receive widespread critical acclaim, of course, and was nominated for 6 Academy Awards, including Best Picture and Best Director. It faced tough competition that year, but its influence outlasted the race for trophies. Its cultural impact has been enormous. Lines from the movie are endlessly quoted and parodied. Its style shaped how crime stories are told on the screen. And without Goodfellas, it's hard to imagine The Sopranos, which admittedly I still have never watched, but I've heard that it took that same focus on routine, contradiction, and moral decay and expanded it into the television format. Alongside The Godfather and Scarface, Goodfellas helped craft the modern gangster genre as a way to explore loyalty, identity, and the seductive pull of violence and power. But unlike those films, Goodfellas never lets the fantasy fully harden into legend. It stays grounded in memory, contradiction, and consequence. The characters end up actually looking sort of pathetic in the end, just like Henry said, regarding his own dismal fate. So, if you're interested in crime films, American history, or character driven storytelling, Goodfellas isn't just recommended viewing, it's essential. Of course, other movies are great too, like A Bronx Tale and Casino, but if I was to pick any one gangster movie, this one might be the one. I'm not sure. Casino is also great, but it's debatable. I'm not sure which one would actually make the top of the list, but I definitely have some reasons why I might include this one as like the top one. All right, well, that's it for this episode. I hope you didn't hate it, and if you did like it, feel free to click like and subscribe, or share it. Why did I say or share it? You should also share it. And, look out for some other movie reviews and some commentary on this or that, because this this podcast does a lot of different things. So, all right, have a good day.